Okay, so I've been wanting to do this video for a really long time, but I thought today is the day and decided to sit down and share with you some of my favorite podcasts that I've been listening to and how I actually got into it. So I know that a lot of people are saying like, oh, I love listening to so and so podcast, and I never really knew what the hell it's all about until one day I realized it's actually a podcast app in my freaking iPhone, and it's free. So if you have an iPhone, you can just basically go to the podcast app, search any type of topics that you like, and then just download the episode for free using your Wi-Fi, and then you can just listen to the episodes while you're outside without using your data. Just a pro tip, especially if you pay a lot for your phone bill. So when I first started out, I didn't know who to listen to, but I kind of knew the people that I really like, you know, consuming their content. So I was really into the Tony Robbins podcast. He was just doing different interviews with various people that are like either entrepreneurs or like just like successful people in general. Mostly they just share a lot of like tactics and strategies based on like business wise, health, life, finance, everything. It's just like what you want to hear basically to improve your life, or you just want to get like a different perspective, which I really enjoy. And some of the interviews that he conducts are not even by him, some are like from his team, and then some are even from his events. If you don't know him, check out his content because it's gonna change your life. And then the second podcast that I listened to was the Oprah Winfrey's Supersoul Conversations. I love Oprah Winfrey since like I was really young. I remember my mom used to put it on TV and we would watch the Oprah Winfrey show, and then knowing that she actually has her Supersoul Conversations on a podcast itself, because I know she does have a YouTube channel for it. It depends on like the type of person that you are. If you like listening to things and you have to watch something, you're a visual person, I feel like the YouTube channel is more geared towards you. But if you are fine with just listening to audio, I think a podcast would be great, because sometimes I know some people, they need to see like the visual in order to kind of like understand what they're talking about. She basically just have a lot of meaningful conversations with like different people, and definitely one of my favorites is with Sheryl Sandberg. It really gave me a lot of perspective onto life, especially because she lost her husband, and you know, it's just really cool to see people with like different perspectives. And I don't know how many times I'm going to mention the word perspective, but it really does change the way I look at life. When I listen to various interviews, you just get, you know, mini takeaways from it, and you just learn a little bit of something, which I think is really cool about podcasts, is that sometimes you listen to an episode and you will never know what kind of things you're going to learn, you know. And because I've listened to those two podcasts, I decided to basically just Google things of like what people usually listen to, and I do like the whole like self-helpy side of it. But one of the top recommendations is the podcast called Serial, and I think that if you've listened to podcasts, you probably have listened to Serial before. It's basically about a true life story about this guy who got into jail because they suspected that he killed his girlfriend, and they're still like, you know, just going back and forth about it. I didn't really like the second series because I don't know, it just didn't pique my interest as much as the first one. It's like listening to a Vice documentary but without the visuals, and when you actually Google about it, you're just like, wow, like you did not expect it to be looking like that, because you know, when you're listening to something, you're just like making stuff in your head, but then when you actually see the real life kind of like pictures and stuff, you're like, oh, it looks like that. So I think it's really cool because it just gives you that suspense. You're like, oh, what's gonna happen next, you know. And they have like legit phone calls with the guy who's in prison and back and forth, and it's just really cool. So Serial is probably like my favorite thrillers. And if you've been following me on my Instagram, you know that I absolutely love listening to My Favorite Murder. I know it sounds kind of morbid, but honestly it's not. So My Favorite Murder podcast is hosted by two comedians. They're both females and they're absolutely freaking hilarious. I feel like whatever stories that they like, you know, come up with, their reactions is exactly the same reaction that I would have. Like every episode, each of them comes up with a story, basically a true thriller crime story which happened recently or like in the past. Their favorite is probably crimes in the 80s, and honestly it is just so mind-boggling how people can just act certain ways, especially in the 80s. Like, are you fucking nuts? The favorite one that I listened to was probably about the cult. I don't know how to pronounce it. Yeah, it's about that cult, and they're just freaking hilarious. I love them, and you might think that listening to those kind of podcasts is really morbid and sad, but honestly, I'm gonna say that word again, it gives you perspective onto life, because thank fucking god I am born in this century, because if not, I wouldn't know how I would survive back then. Like, people, there was no fucking internet, and then like people were just not as open-minded and educated. So can you imagine the amount of torture people go through just because you don't believe a certain thing? Like, it's crazy. But anyways, highly recommend you to check that out, because My Favorite Mother is freaking amazing, and they actually do like live tours, which I think is freaking cool, because it just started out with two funny chicks sitting down sharing their favorite horror, thriller, kind of true life stories, and then, you know, it just started to be something big. So yeah, and I really like the tagline. At the end of it, it'll be like, stay sexy and don't get murdered. I've been raving about this podcast to my friends and basically people that I know, and I think they're pretty sick of it, but I don't care, because it's just fucking interesting. Sometimes it's just giving me imaginations that will be brought and carried away into my dreams, and I will wake up feeling like, what the fuck just happened, you know? When it comes to YouTubers creating their own podcasts, for me, I'm really picky. I would listen to it and then I would know instantly whether I would enjoy it or not. I know Megan Rings has one. Who else? The Anna Edit and Lily Pebbles have one together. It's called At Home With. The Health Code by Sarah's Day. But I don't really listen to it as frequently, even though they come out with like a few episodes every time. But the one that I truly enjoy, but although it has already ended, is by Estee Lalonde, who is known as Essie Button previously, and it's a podcast called The Heart of It, and I absolutely love it because she invites different people to her podcast and she just interviews them and just talks about certain things. My favorite episode is probably her and her mom. It just made me cry. I was in a train, and then when the mom read the letter to her, I was just like, oh my god, trying to keep it together in public. But it's really touching, and I just love her. Again, I'm gonna use the, can I stop using the word perspective? Like, shut the, I just really love her take on life, and I don't know, it's just such a nice kind of like feeling to hear, you know. It's really lighthearted, but at the same time it goes deep into certain topics. And because of that podcast, I actually found this girl. Her name is Chelsey. She's this like really fit, badass chick, and like, oh my gosh, you go to her Instagram, you're like, no wonder you were doing the things that you were saying in the podcast. Like, she swam with fucking whales. Who does that? Like, it's insane. Like, you're naked and you're swimming with whales. But anyways, I'm just going all over the place. The content of the podcast really embodies the name of it, which is called The Heart of It. So the next three podcasts that I'm going to recommend to you are kind of like in the same realm, is that how you pronounce it? Because they kind of like fall into like the same category. It's basically someone interviewing different people from different walks of life. They could be athletes, doctors, business owners, entrepreneurs, and basically well-known people that you might know or you might not even know. And it's just really interesting. So I'll give you the first three. I have it actually down on my phone. Foundr magazine is probably one of my favorites. It's just like really easy to listen to. You know, there are certain kind of like content when you listen to, it's really hard to consume and digest, but for this one it's really easy to listen to. And then we have Impact Theory with Tom Bilyeu. If you don't know who he is, basically he is the owner and founder of Quest Bar. His background story himself is really so inspirational, and then the fact now he is trying to bring value to everyone in the world by interviewing other people that are just as like-minded and just so successful and just so amazing. I think it's pretty cool. So you get to listen to different people that he interviews about, and I really like him as an interviewer because he asks like different questions that no one really asks about them. Obviously my favorite one has to be the interview with Gary Vee. Who else? There's this like buff muscular guy, I cannot wrap my head around his name, I forgot, but I do like his interview with him. And the one that Sarah actually recommended to me is his interview with Dr. Joe Dispenza. So that's kind of like how I found out more about Dr. Joe Dispenza and about his work and stuff. So it's really, I don't know, I just love the podcast. Okay, so check him out. They have really great A-star interviews. And another one is, let me see, yeah, The School of Greatness by Lewis Howes. I hope I pronounced his last name correctly, because if not, I'm sorry. Is it how I don't know. Even though sometimes they interview the same people that other podcasts have interviewed before, I think it just brings like a different take to the table. Like, you just, I don't know, like it could be the same thing but it's just on like a different angle. So that's one of the three podcasts that I actually kind of like in a similar group that I continuously listen to, and they interview a shitloads of people like almost every single week. And yeah, there's like hundreds of episodes for you to listen to, so you're definitely not missing out anything. And if you're really into the whole like self-helpy side of it, or like more, I don't know why I did this, that's very weird, but like if you're more into like really positive kind of content to kind of like help you like, I don't know, like boost your confidence or like motivate you to like get through the day, I think Optimal Living Daily is one of the most popular ones that you can find on the podcast app. It's really easy to digest and listen to because it's just less than kind of like 10 minutes or even lesser than that, so it's kind of like, oh, really quick and easy, really like highlight for you to listen to, but at the same time the impact is just as, you know, deep. Because other podcasts that I actually recommend to you, they are like, I don't know, like around 30 minutes, that's the minimum, until like 2 hours, which I personally like. The longer the better for me, because I don't know, you can listen to it while you're working out, while you're on a daily commute, whatsoever. It just keeps you entertained. So basically you have a narrator, and then you will read out like different excerpts from like different interviews, books, anything that's like really inspirational and motivational and stuff like that. And it's really bite-sized and easy to listen to. Besides Optimal Living Daily, they have like subcategories of it. So I think now they have Optimal Finance Daily, Optimal Relationships Daily, Optimal Business Daily, Optimal Health Daily. So I think that's pretty cool because you can actually just like break it down and listen to whichever that you prefer. And last but not least is, obviously if you know me, you know that this is probably one of my favorite podcasts, and it is the Gary Vee audio experience. I freaking love Gary Vee. Like, I should have listened to my friend a long time ago because Sarah actually introduced me to Gary Vee, and I'm like, yeah, okay, like iffy about it. And I think if you watch one of my vlogs, like, I don't know, like a few vlogs away I actually mentioned about Gary Vee because I watched him the first time. I didn't really like him because I thought like, who is this guy? Like, he's very douchey in a way. He was just like saying a lot of vulgarities and shouting. I was just like, shut up, I don't want to listen to you. And then when I saw Peter McKinnon's vlog about him, I'm like, wow, like, hey, you know, he seems like a cool guy. I checked out his content on Instagram and then on YouTube and then on podcasts, and I'm like, I'm sold, because the kind of content that he puts out is not bullshit at all. I think first impression that people like to think about him is that, oh, he's just like a rah-rah motivational speaker, but he's not. Yes, of course, he's a businessman who will talk about business in general, but then he emphasizes a lot on self-awareness, patience, two of those things that I really need to instill within me. What else? Empathy, gratitude, all those things. By society, because he's 42 years old, people think that he is old, but to me, he is like a cool old guy, if that make any sense. Like, you would think like 42-year-old won't know shit, but honestly he is so on point with like social media and like marketing and like anything creative and media and stuff like that. I think he's so freaking cool, and the way he just brings you to perspective on life. Yet again, I keep using that word, I'm sorry. Leave me a comment down below how many times I actually mentioned the word perspective, but I'm sorry, I cannot help myself. Sometimes you hear the same thing over and over again, you won't get it the first time. So let's say you listen it to like 100 times, and that 100 times suddenly you have like an aha moment and you're like, oh shit, now I know what he's been talking about. And the cool thing about him is that he also does interviews, not only from his seminars, his events and Q&As and stuff, but also interviews people that you possibly might know. So for example, he interviewed Drake Bell from Drake and Josh, and then Lewis Hamilton, who else? Yeah, there's lots more, I just cannot remember now. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what are some of your favorite podcasts that you like to listen to. If you have any recommendations, leave me a comment down below, because I like listening to like new different shows. And yeah, that's pretty much it, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.